Jason and Emilie were a happy couple living in a bustling city, balancing their jobs with a unique passion for ghost hunting. They spent their weekends exploring allegedly haunted locations, equipped with an array of gadgets to capture any evidence of the paranormal for their growing vlog channel. Despite their efforts, they had never encountered anything beyond spooky atmospheres and creaking doors, which only solidified their belief that ghosts were nothing more than myths and campfire tales. Their content often took a skeptical angle, debunking the supernatural and poking fun at the locations they visited. They were on a mission to prove that ghosts didn't exist. But fate had a darker plan for them, as their relentless search for a truly haunted place would lead them to a destination that would challenge everything they believed and cost them dearly. While searching for their next thrilling ghost-busting adventure, Jason and Emilie stumbled upon a chilling story about a haunted railway station in the remote town of Blackridge. Nestled between two towering mountains, Blackridge was a quaint, almost forgotten settlement. Its most eerie landmark was the old railway station, a relic of a time long past. Blackridge Station had been abandoned for decades, its walls crumbling and platforms overtaken by thick vines and weeds. Once a vibrant hub connecting Blackridge to the surrounding region, the station's history took a devastating turn 50 years ago. On a foggy night, a miscommunication between signal operators resulted in a tragic collision. A passenger train, filled to capacity with locals returning from a festival, was accidentally directed onto the same track as an approaching freight train carrying highly flammable oil. The collision triggered a massive explosion, engulfing both trains in flames and killing everyone on board. The fire raged for hours, consuming not just the trains, but part of the station itself. The tragedy left a deep scar on the community, and the site became synonymous with grief and loss. Afterwards, the station was plagued by strange occurrences. Residents claimed to hear the faint whistle of a train echoing through the night, even though no trains had passed through the station in years. Others reported seeing ghostly figures wandering the charred platforms, and some swore they heard the anguished cries of passengers trapped in the fire. These eerie events fueled local lore and earned the Blackridge Station its haunted reputation. Unable to bear the station's tragic past and the chilling phenomena, the town abandoned it, leaving it to decay and solidify its place as a cursed relic. Intrigued and dismissive of the legends, Jason and Emilie decided this would be their next target. Armed with cameras, ghost detection gadgets, and their trademark skepticism, they planned to debunk the myths and prove that even this ominous site had no real ghosts. Little did they know, Blackridge Station held secrets that would challenge everything they believed. One weekend, Jason and Emilie embarked on their next ghost-busting adventure, determined to unravel the mysteries of the infamous Blackridge Station. The couple arrived at the edge of the dense forest surrounding the long-abandoned railway station. Over the years, nature had reclaimed the area, shrouding the station in layers of untamed greenery, making it a foreboding destination. Since the station was isolated and inaccessible by car, Jason and Emilie parked their vehicle on the side of the quiet highway. Equipped with their ghost hunting gear, flashlights, and cameras, they set off on foot, venturing deeper into the overgrown wilderness. The air was thick with humidity, and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures echoed around them, adding an eerie ambience to their journey. As they trudged through the forest, the dense canopy of trees cast long shadows, and the narrow path seemed to wind endlessly. The rustle of leaves underfoot and the occasional snapping of twigs heightened their anticipation. The station lay hidden approximately 1 to 2 miles from the highway, but every step toward their destination seemed to draw them further into an unsettling silence, as if the forest itself were holding its breath in expectation. When they reached the station, its eerie grandeur struck them. It was almost midnight. The crumbling facade, once majestic, loomed against the darkening sky. Rusted tracks snaked into the fog like veins of a forgotten beast. The group entered cautiously, their flashlights casting long, trembling shadows on the peeling walls. As they explored, the air grew colder, carrying a faint metallic tang. Jason was the first to notice the oddities. A faint echo of footsteps trailed them, though no one was there. Jason laughed nervously, brushing it off as paranoia, but Emilie's wide eyes betrayed her fear. Near the ticket booth, they found a dusty ledger. Jason opened it, revealing passenger names and dates from 50 years ago, the day of the alleged tragedy. Scrawled hastily on the last page were the words, "They are here. Don't let the train stop. If it does, they'll take you with them. Forever." What the hell does that mean? Emilie scoffed, though her voice wavered. Suddenly, a faint whistle echoed through the night. Both froze. "That's impossible," Jason whispered. "The tracks are dead." The whistle grew louder, accompanied by the rumble of an approaching train. The group ran to the platform, their breaths visible in the icy air. To their astonishment, a ghostly train emerged from the fog. Its carriages shimmered ethereally, windows glowing with a pale light. Shadows of passengers sat inside, their faces indistinct but unnervingly still. They couldn't believe their eyes what they were watching. Emilie clutched Jason's arm. "We need to leave now." Mark stood, frozen in place, his eyes locked on the spectral train that appeared out of the mist. It loomed before him, a ghostly figure from the past, its whistle echoing through the night air. Every inch of him screamed to run, but his body refused to obey. He was captivated, trapped in the haunting vision. Emilie, still clinging to her senses, yanked Jason away, her grip firm and desperate. "We need to go now," she urged. The two of them dashed toward the station's interior, their hurried footsteps echoing through the silence. They burst through a door, only to find themselves in the control room, dimly lit, cluttered with levers and switches that once guided the flow of trains but now seemed lifeless. The door slammed shut behind them with a deafening thud. Instantly, the temperature dropped, the air thick with the cold of forgotten years. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, dancing along the walls, and whispers began to swirl around them, low and unintelligible, like voices rising from the depths of the earth. Some sounded pleading, others accusing, each carrying an unbearable weight. Emilie's breath caught in her throat. "We shouldn't have come here," she whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Suddenly, a voice cold and void of compassion boomed from the shadows, filling the room with an unnerving resonance.
This train has waited for its passengers far too long. Tonight, it will take you to your destination, your final destination.
Cruel laugh followed, sending chills down their spines. Jason's eyes darted to the old clock on the wall. The hands were spinning wildly, erratically, as if caught in some unnatural vortex. Then, as though guided by some unseen force, they suddenly halted. The time read 11:47, the exact moment the tragedy had occurred years ago. The sound of the train's whistle, distant at first, now reverberated through the room, growing louder and closer, drawing near with each passing second. Jason's heart raced as the weight of the situation hit him. "We cannot let the train stop," he shouted, his voice urgent and panicked. He remembered the ledger's warning, the one that spoke of the train's unyielding path. Emilie's face was pale, her breath shallow. "But how?" she asked, her voice breaking. The fear in her eyes mirrored Jason's, an overwhelming, paralyzing terror of the unknown that gripped them both. The air in the control room grew even colder, as if the walls themselves were closing in, and the distant whistle of the train now felt like a countdown to something far worse than they had imagined. Suddenly, the door to the control room slammed open with a deafening crash. The sharp gust of wind carried with it the chill of the night, and in the doorway stood an old man, his face weathered by time, his eyes hollow with the weight of unspoken truths. Clutched tightly in his hand was a flickering lantern, its dim light casting long shadows on the walls. Without a word, the old man moved with surprising urgency, his steps quick and purposeful. He rushed towards the signal control lever, his frail hands grasping it with a strength that seemed to come from somewhere deep within him. With a grimace of effort, he yanked the lever down. The sharp click of the mechanism locking into place reverberated through the room, decisive and final. The train's track was redirected, sending it hurtling onto the fast line instead of slowing near the platform, causing it to speed past the station without a pause. Outside, the spectral train, its engine howling like a banshee in the distance, barreled toward the station. The ghostly figures within it, their faces twisted in agony, pressed their forms against the windows, their mouths open in silent screams. And then, as if obeying some malevolent command, the train surged past the platform, speeding by without so much as a pause, its wheels grinding against the tracks in an unholy rush. The old man didn't wait for a second longer. His voice, hoarse but urgent, broke through the eerie silence of the room. "You need to leave, now," he shouted, his eyes wide with fear, his lantern flickering as if struggling against the darkness. Jason and Emilie didn't need any more prompting. Without a moment's hesitation, the three of them bolted out of the control room, hearts racing, breaths coming in frantic gasps. The haunted station, with its chilling whispers and the lingering presence of the past, seemed to pulse with an unseen malevolence, but there was no time to look back. They dashed through the darkened hallways, their footsteps echoing in the empty space, the sound of the train's whistle still ringing in their ears. The night outside was cold and oppressive, but the thought of escaping the clutches of that cursed place pushed them forward. Finally, they reached their car. After everyone had caught their breath, the old man spoke with a somber tone. "You shouldn't have come here. This station is haunted and forbidden." Jason, still struggling to understand, asked, "But this station has been abandoned for years. How is it possible for a train to still be running here? And who were the people inside that train?" The old man sighed deeply, his eyes darkening as he began to tell the tale. "The world only knows half of the story," he began, his voice heavy with sorrow. 50 years ago, when that tragedy happened, the train caught fire. People were trapped inside the coaches as the flames consumed everything. The fire was so massive, so uncontrollable, that those on the platform could do nothing but stand helplessly, watching as everyone inside perished. No one could rush in, no one could save them. It was a devastating scene. He paused, his gaze distant as if reliving that horrific night. "But what they don't know," he continued, "is that the people inside the train weren't just killed. They saw the horror, the bystanders. The realization that no one was coming to their aid, that they were abandoned to die in such a cruel way, this filled their spirits with rage. Their anger became their chains. They couldn't move on. They were trapped in that burning moment for eternity." The old man's voice trembled as he spoke, his eyes clouded with grief. Now, every night at the same time, the train returns to the station. It stops at the platform, just as it did all those years ago. And whoever is foolish enough to be on the station at that hour, the spirits inside the train take them along. No one knows where they go, and no one ever sees them again. He fell silent, the weight of his words settling into the stillness of the night. After hearing the old man's chilling story, both Jason and Emilie were left in stunned silence, their minds struggling to process everything they had just learned. Grateful but confused, they got into the car and began their journey back. The tension in the vehicle was palpable, each of them lost in their own thoughts. As they drove away, Emilie finally broke the silence. "But who was that old man? And how did he know we were in trouble?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder and unease. Jason, too, was grappling with the same questions. It hit him then. They had never asked the old man his name or how he had known exactly what was happening. The unanswered questions gnawed at him. Without hesitation, Jason pulled the car over to the side of the road. "We need to go back and ask him," he said, his voice urgent. Both of them stepped out of the car and turned to retrace their steps, hoping to find the old man and get the answers they needed. But as they looked around, the road ahead was eerily empty. No sign of the old man. No footsteps. The night air felt colder, and the only thing they could see was the endless stretch of empty road. They stared at each other, their hearts pounding in their chests, both filled with a mix of dread and confusion. "Where did he go?" Emilie whispered, her voice barely audible. Jason swallowed hard, his mind racing. "I don't know. This is even more terrifying than the train." For a long moment, neither of them spoke, both trying to make sense of the impossible situation. The ghostly train or the old man, both seemed equally haunting, but the absence of the man and his strange appearance at just the right moment left them with an unsettling feeling. Was he a ghost himself? or something else entirely. The mystery loomed over them, unanswered and chilling.